The rain hammered down like it had a vendetta, soaking Olivia's scrubs as she stepped out of the cab, plastic hospital badge swinging with each tired step toward the front door. Her shoes squelched against the concrete, the porch light flickering above her like a dying pulse. She reached for her key. It didn't fit. She tried again. Same result. Her brow furrowed. She twisted harder, jiggled it. Still nothing. Then she saw it, her suitcase, dumped unceremoniously beside the flower pots, its zipper half open, her folded uniforms hanging out like wet laundry. A smaller pink bag sat beside it, her son Jaden's overnight backpack. Olivia blinked through the rain. Her heart dropped. "Eric!" she called, voice raised over the downpour. She knocked, then pounded. "Eric!" A window creaked open upstairs. Olivia stepped back to see a face she knew all too well. Margaret, grey robe, hair tightly pinned, lips pursed into a smirk that barely disguised the contempt beneath. "You don't live here anymore," Margaret said, eyes narrowed. Her tone was flat, deadly. "What are you talking about?" Olivia shouted up. "Where's Eric? Let me in." Margaret didn't flinch. "You were warned. This house belongs to my son, not you." "I just got off a 12-hour shift," Olivia's voice cracked. "Jaden's inside. Just let me talk to Eric." "You'll find your things are already packed," Margaret said, as if announcing a room service delivery. "Take them and go. You'll get the rest when the court decides what's yours." "Court?" Olivia stepped forward, rain cascading off her face. "You're out of your mind. Where's my son?" But the window slammed shut. "Eric!" she yelled up at the glass. "Eric!" No lights flickered on, no footsteps, just the distant hum of a TV. She knocked again, then again, fists pounding the door like a desperate drum. Nothing. From across the street, a curtain shifted. A neighbour's face briefly appeared, then vanished. She turned back to her soaked luggage. Water pooled around the base of her suitcase. She fumbled for her phone, called Eric. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She called twice more. Same result. Olivia dropped her phone. It landed in a puddle. She didn't even pick it up. Hours later, she was curled in the front seat of her Honda, legs tucked to her chest, the only blanket her damp hoodie. The windows fogged from her breath. She stared out at the house she'd cleaned, cried in, raised her child in. Behind one of those windows, Jaden slept, probably clutching the stuffed giraffe she gave him for his 3rd birthday. Lightning flashed. Her face lit up in the rearview mirror, eyes hollow, mascara streaked. A single tear slipped free and trailed down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. She just stared and let it fall. The next morning, the sun rose like it had no memory of the storm. Olivia sat at a gas station, sipping burnt coffee from a cracked styrofoam cup. Her phone was still damp, stuck on one bar of service, but she kept checking it. No missed calls, no texts, nothing from Eric, nothing about Jaden. She stared out at the road, the highway stretching east toward nowhere she wanted to go. Every joint in her body ached, but she forced herself to breathe, slow and quiet, the way she used to when calming patients during emergencies. Olivia had mastered the art of survival. She just hadn't realized she'd need it at home. She met Eric 5 years ago in the waiting room of the ER, of all places. He was visiting a cousin who'd had a minor accident. He made her laugh at the vending machine. He asked her out with a shy confidence that felt gentle compared to the chaos of her world. He was stability, sweet, quiet, thoughtful. And after a lifetime of group homes, disinterested foster parents, and birthdays forgotten by everyone but social workers, Olivia wanted stability more than anything. Eric's family seemed like a dream. Big Sunday dinners, family group chats, Christmas photos in matching pajamas. At first, Margaret had been warm, even maternal. She gifted Olivia a casserole dish and called her dear, but that warmth cooled the moment Eric proposed. "She's not from a family like ours," Olivia overheard her whisper once, when she was supposed to be in the shower. Olivia was too eager to belong to push back. It got worse after Margaret's husband died. She moved in temporarily and never left, said the house was too quiet, claimed she had nowhere else to go. But somehow, her name appeared on the utility bills and eventually the deed. Eric had added her, just in case something happened. Olivia found out months later. Margaret criticized everything. Olivia's cooking, too spicy. The way she folded laundry, like a child. Even her choice of pajamas. "You don't dress like a married woman," she once snapped. Worst of all, she questioned Olivia's parenting at every turn. "You spoil him. she said when Olivia rocked Jayden to sleep. "You're making him soft." When Jayden cried during Margaret's loud prayers, she blamed Olivia for raising a disrespectful child. And Eric always said the same thing. "Just let her be. She's grieving. It's not worth the fight." But Olivia was the one shrinking. Little by little, year after year, she lost her voice in that house. Financial decisions were made without her. Margaret began managing the bills, the credit cards, to help Eric. Olivia's name was quietly removed from joint accounts. When she questioned it, Eric said, "You never liked dealing with that stuff anyway." Still, Olivia tried. She worked night shifts, missed holidays, gave up vacations. She kept hoping love would be enough, that one day Eric would stand up, that one day Margaret would soften, that one day the house would feel like hers. That day never came. Instead, there were humiliations. Being blamed for missing keys Margaret herself misplaced. Being scolded in front of guests for how she spoke to Jayden. Being forced to explain why her name wasn't on the family emergency contact list at the pediatrician's office. And Eric? He'd fold his arms, stay silent, or worse, agree. "She just wants what's best," he once said. "You're being emotional." That phrase sat in her chest like a lead stone. Now, outside the hospital parking lot, Olivia texted the one person who always had her back. "Nina." "Where are you?" Olivia. "Long story. Can I crash at yours tonight?" Nina's reply came fast. Nina. "Hell yes. Come now. I'm making jollof rice and judgmental faces." Nina had been her rock from day one, sharp-tongued, unfiltered, and fiercely loyal. She was the kind of woman who called out bullshit mid-sentence and didn't care whose feelings it hurt. "You let that witch treat you like the help in your own damn house?" Nina once asked, when Olivia confessed how Margaret once made her eat in the kitchen with the help during a family party. "She's just, I don't know," Olivia had murmured. "I do," Nina had said. "She's evil, and you're letting her win." Now, as Olivia pulled out of the gas station and pointed her car toward Nina's apartment, the city skyline glinting in the morning haze, a quiet rage began to stir in her chest. She didn't know what came next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to disappear. The manila envelope came by courier. No warning, no return address. Olivia signed for it half asleep in Nina's apartment, still wearing borrowed sweatpants and mismatched socks. Jayden's toothbrush lay untouched on the bathroom sink. She'd bought it on the second day after the lockout, still clinging to the hope he'd be with her soon. She opened the envelope at the kitchen counter, coffee brewing behind her. It wasn't bills. It was court documents. Petition for sole custody, Eric Owens versus Olivia Moore. The paper fluttered from her hand. She picked it up again, scanned the paragraphs. Words blurred until one line crystallized. "The respondent exhibits signs of emotional instability, has demonstrated obsessive and erratic behavior, and poses a risk to the child's well-being." A pounding filled her ears. She turned the pages. There were statements, Margaret's, descriptions of Olivia being neglectful, allegations that she left Jayden alone at night while working shifts, that she screamed at him, that he cried around her, that he was scared of her. "They're saying I'm abusive," Olivia whispered, mouth dry. Nina had just walked in with a towel on her head. She froze at the sight of Olivia's face. "What happened?" Olivia handed her the papers with shaking hands. By the time Nina finished reading, her towel was on the floor and her voice was steel. "These people are out of their goddamn minds." "She got to him," Olivia said quietly. "She's been planning this." She opened her phone and tried the daycare again. This time she didn't ask to speak to Jayden. She asked for his schedule. "I'm his mother," she said carefully. "I just need to know when he'll be there." "I'm sorry," the receptionist said. Her tone clipped. "Jayden Owens is not listed under your approved contacts anymore. I can't provide any further information." Click. Olivia stood there, frozen in the middle of the kitchen. "They erased me. I'm invisible." No, Nina muttered, already pulling her laptop out. "We're getting you a lawyer. Today." That afternoon, they sat across from a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar just under his chin and a face that didn't move much when he talked. Marcus Gray, family law attorney, former social worker. No nonsense. No fake sympathy. "I've seen this playbook before," he said after reading the documents. "She's painting you as unstable, unfit, and emotionally erratic." Olivia stared at him. "But I've never even raised my voice at Jayden. She doesn't need facts. She just needs perception. And she's counting on you crumbling." "I'm not crazy," Olivia whispered, almost to herself. "I just wanted peace." That house was war every day. Then you're going to have to fight for peace now, Marcus said. Because this custody case, it's not about Eric, it's about Margaret. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. You're not just up against a man. You're up against a woman who sees control as love, who's willing to weaponize a child to win. He handed Olivia a legal pad. I need a full timeline. Everything. When she moved in, what changed? Every incident. Every manipulation. No detail is too small. Nina jumped in. You want audio? I have voicemails, messages, her rants. She's been on speaker more times than I can count. Marcus cracked the first smile she'd seen. Good. We're going to turn her truth into evidence. Olivia sat back, her breath trembling in her chest. The word custody echoed in her brain like a siren. She had faced screaming patients, bloodied trauma cases, and long nights with no sleep. But this was war with someone who looked her in the eye at family dinners and called her sweetheart. This was erasure, but she wasn't disappearing. Not this time. The courtroom smelled like dust and old leather. Olivia sat straight in her chair, hands clenched in her lap. The only movement the trembling of her thumb over her knuckle. She could see them just 3 chairs over. Margaret in a navy blue suit with pearls, serene as a bishop, and Eric beside her, eyes downcast, saying nothing, just like always. When Margaret took the stand, her voice was calm, clipped, and rehearsed. I was hesitant about Olivia from the beginning, she said to the judge, folding her hands. She came from difficult circumstances, no stable family, no clear moral compass. I worried about the child's safety. She paused. There were nights when Jaden would wake up screaming, and she wouldn't even stir. I'd have to comfort him. She was disconnected. Olivia's mouth opened slightly. Marcus touched her wrist gently. Not now. She would come home from work exhausted, snapping at him. She once told me she wished she'd waited longer to have a child. A quiet gasp came from someone in the gallery. Olivia flinched. She is obsessive, Your Honor, about control, about appearances. She wants to own the child, not raise him. Thank you, Mrs. Owens, the judge said. We'll take that under advisement. Eric didn't speak, not even when given the opportunity. His lawyer simply submitted an affidavit confirming he supported his mother's claims. Olivia stared at him, searching his face for something. Remorse, confusion, anything. But he didn't even look at her. Then it was her turn. Marcus stood, commanding, but calm. Ms. Moore, would you describe your relationship with Jaden? Olivia exhaled slowly. Her voice came out softer than she'd hoped, but steady. I'm his mother. I've bathed him, rocked him to sleep, worked double shifts to keep our home stable. I taught him how to say please and thank you, how to hold a pencil, how to calm himself when he's scared. She paused. But every time I tried to be heard in that house, I was made smaller. When I wanted to be included, I was called controlling. When I cried, I was called unstable. Marcus nodded. Were you ever abusive? Never. Her eyes shone now. That's a lie, and Margaret knows it. Court was adjourned for the day, but the real battle had only begun. That evening, Marcus brought news that made Olivia's stomach turn. I dug into Margaret's background. There's something odd. She had a daughter, Angela, but no trace of her since 2012. No social media, no contact. It's like she disappeared. She never once mentioned a daughter, Olivia whispered. Exactly. They dug deeper. Marcus sent a PI to follow the thread. Meanwhile, Olivia turned to the only thing she could control, her story. She began collecting everything. Texts from Eric where he blamed his mother but didn't want to fight. Old voicemails from Margaret saying things like, you should be grateful I'm even letting you live here. A video on Nina's phone where Margaret snatched a toy from Jaden and told him, your mother doesn't know what's best. Nina gave her a USB drive filled with audio clips. Just in case. I knew she'd pull something like this. Late nights were now spent organizing evidence. But something else was happening too. Olivia began to shift. Where she once whispered, she now spoke clearly. Where she once apologized for existing, she now asked hard questions. To Marcus, to Nina, to herself. She changed her wardrobe. Nothing flashy, just firm lines, fitted blouses, grounded shoes. She cut her hair shorter, cleaned her posture, stopped ending sentences like questions. One afternoon, she stood across from Eric in the hallway outside the courtroom. I read your affidavit, she said, voice low but cutting. You used to say you loved that I was strong. Now it scares you? Eric looked away. She's my mum, he said quietly. And I was your wife. He didn't answer. She walked away. The following week, court resumed. Jayden was brought in for a private conversation with the judge, under observation. Olivia waited in a small room nearby, heart hammering. She imagined him laughing, playing. She imagined him crying. What had they told him? When the door opened and the judge emerged, his face was grave. He said, "He's scared of you." Olivia's vision blurred. He said you get mad and scream, that you don't want him to play with Nana, that you told him you don't like Daddy anymore. Olivia shook her head slowly. He never used to be afraid of me. Never. They've been feeding him, Marcus said under his breath. Programming. Back in Nina's car that evening, Olivia didn't cry. She just sat still, hands on her knees, jaw clenched. He thinks I'm a monster, she finally said. No, Nina said firmly. He thinks what they want him to think. But deep down, he remembers who loves him. I can't lose him. Then don't, Nina said. Don't give them the version of you they want. Give them the one they're afraid of. The next morning, the courtroom felt colder that morning, like it knew something was coming. Margaret sat poised in her usual seat, lips tight, pearl earrings in place like armor. Eric looked paler than usual, his suit hanging off him like it didn't belong to him anymore. Marcus entered with a small, composed woman in her 40s, short hair, calm eyes, a scar just beneath her right ear. Your Honor, Marcus said, rising. The defense would like to call a new witness, Angela Simmons. Margaret's face didn't move, but her hands tightened visibly in her lap. Angela took the stand and swore in. Her voice was soft but unwavering. My name is Angela Simmons, but I was born Angela Owens. Margaret is my mother. Eric turned slowly, eyes narrowing. I changed my name in 2014 after a long process of recovery. Recovery from what, Miss Simmons? Marcus asked. Angela looked directly at the judge. Emotional abuse, psychological control, years of manipulation and gaslighting from my mother. A long silence stretched across the courtroom. She convinced me my husband was cheating when he wasn't, turned me against my friends, made me feel like I couldn't survive without her guidance. I ended up in a psychiatric facility for 3 months. It wasn't until my therapist asked me one question, whose voice do you hear when you feel worthless, that I began to realize the truth. Marcus nodded, stepping closer. Why haven't you been in contact with your mother since? Angela hesitated only a second. Because once I cut contact, she told the family I ran off with a criminal, that I was unstable, I lost my brother, Eric, because she told him I didn't want him anymore. Eric's hands dropped into his lap, his mouth parted slightly. Angela turned her head slowly toward him. I never stopped thinking about you. The judge looked between them, then back at Angela. What is your opinion of Margaret's influence in this case? Angela's gaze returned to the bench. She's doing to Olivia what she did to me, turning her child into a weapon, using lies to control the narrative. She can't stand not being the center of someone's world. Marcus nodded. Thank you. He turned to the judge. We rest. The courtroom was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Margaret's lawyer whispered something to her, but Margaret stood suddenly. That woman abandoned this family, she hissed. She's a bitter liar with no understanding of sacrifice. She's just... Mrs. Owens, the judge said sharply, you will sit down and remain silent, or I'll have you removed. Margaret sat slowly, but her eyes burned like a cornered animal. Eric stood for the first time. The judge looked at him. Would you like to make a statement? He nodded, cleared his throat, but when he spoke, his voice cracked. I don't even know if I ever made a decision in my life. Margaret turned her head toward him, but he didn't look at her. I thought I was keeping peace, but I was just disappearing. My sister, my wife, even my son. He looked at Olivia, really looked at her, for the first time in months. I'm sorry. Olivia didn't move. She just stared. The judge leaned forward, hands folded. After reviewing the new testimony and existing evidence, this court finds the accusations against Ms. Moore to be unsubstantiated and built largely on hearsay and manipulation. Margaret shifted in her seat. The court grants Ms. Moore primary custody of Jayden Owens. Supervised visitation may be negotiated pending further evaluation. Marcus placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder. She didn't even breathe. And due to the credible testimony regarding Mrs. Margaret Owens' history of coercive and emotionally abusive behavior, the court hereby issues a temporary restraining order. She is not to contact or approach either Ms. Moore or Jayden Owens pending psychological assessment. Margaret gasped, actually gasped, as if someone had struck her. Olivia blinked hard. For a moment, she couldn't tell if it was real. Then Jaden's name rang in her ears. She won. But more than that, she'd been heard. The new apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms and a galley kitchen with creaky cabinets, but it was hers. The first time Olivia turned the key, Jaden in tow with his giraffe under one arm and a juice box in the other, she felt a quiet surge in her chest that she didn't dare name. They spent the first night on an air mattress, laughing at the echo of their voices, bouncing off the empty walls. Jaden asked where the TV was. Olivia smiled and said, "Let's make stories up instead." He nodded and fell asleep curled into her side, safe and soft and still. She picked up extra shifts at the hospital, nights, weekends, any time she could. It wasn't easy. She was tired always, but it was honest. It was her. She didn't check over her shoulder when she used her debit card. She didn't flinch at text messages. Her support circle grew tighter, stronger. Nina became her emergency contact, babysitter, and late-night rant partner. Angela stayed in touch, texting Olivia every week just to ask how she was managing and to send her parenting meme. And Marcus, usually stone-faced and stoic, invited Olivia to speak on a local panel for women navigating high-conflict custody battles. "You have a voice now," he said, handing her a microphone. "Use it." She did, nervously at first, then with fire. She shared her story in community groups, started organizing online spaces for women cut off from their children by controlling in-laws. She learned terms: narcissistic triangulation, family enmeshment, gaslighting. She started therapy. She slept deeply. She let her phone ring sometimes and didn't rush to answer. Then came the text from Eric. "Can I see him?" "Please, just once." She waited a day, then another, then replied, "Supervise, only. Your mother is not welcome." They met at a neutral visitation center the following Sunday. Jaden ran into the room with cautious energy, unsure at first, but smiled when Eric knelt and offered him a dinosaur toy. Olivia watched from across the glass. After the session, Eric walked out slowly, eyes rimmed red. I let her turn me into something I don't even recognize," he said. "I'm sorry." Olivia didn't flinch. "This isn't revenge, Eric," she said. "This is protection, for him and for me." He nodded. Tears slipped down his cheeks. She didn't comfort him. She walked back inside, picked up her son, and drove home with the windows cracked, just enough to feel the breeze. No fear, no apology, just forward. The apartment was quiet. The hum of the refrigerator, the only sound as Olivia pulled Jaden's blanket up to his chin. He blinked at her with heavy eyes, his giraffe tucked close under one arm. "Mommy," he whispered, "are we safe now?" She didn't answer right away. Her hand lingered on his hair, smoothing the curls back from his forehead. "We're getting there," she said soft. He nodded once, sleep already pulling him under. She watched him for a long moment, then stood, turning off the lamp beside his bed. The nightlight glowed softly in the corner, casting gentle stars across the ceiling. Olivia stepped out onto the small balcony just off the living room. The city buzzed in the distance, headlights flickering far below. She wrapped her sweater tighter around her shoulders, breathing in the cool night air. In her hand was the letter. Margaret's handwriting, tight and pristine, filled 2 full pages. From a therapy center in upstate New York. A carefully crafted apology, regret, "Please forgive me," a signature at the end that meant nothing now. Olivia read it once, then again, then set it into the shallow ceramic dish she used for incense. She struck a match, watched the flame catch the edge, curl the paper, eat through every elegant loop of Margaret's pen. The paper crumbled quickly. Black turned to grey, then ash. She stood there, arms crossed, as the wind lifted the remains and scattered them into the night air. No dramatic music, no tears, just silence and the quiet, steady rhythm of breathing, hers and her son's, finally at peace. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.